I've got another story for you, lads and lassies. This story is called Circumference and the Fracton Fair, a math adventure. Okay? Again, this is a brand new story for me, but I purchased it recently and I was going to read it this year to my class, and I'm not with my class, but I'm still going to read it to you. I've read other books by this author before, and you'll see it's kind of a silly math book. Okay. Fine fabrics, fresh cheese, bah, bah. It was the opening morning of the Fracton Fair. Oh, such a merry atmosphere, said Lady Di of Amateur. So there's actually a math concept that has to do with circles called diameter. So she's Lady Di of Amateur. She and Circumference strolled jauntily through the crowds with their friend Reginald Parton, the Earl of Fracton. All right. Circumference is also a math word that's used in circles. It's not something you'll learn in third grade. Okay. And then, so that's Lady Di, that's Circumference, and this is their friend, the Earl of Fracton, whose name is Reginald Parton. We're back in medieval times. The two men stopped to watch a sword swallower, while Lady Di wandered over to a cloth merchant's booth. She ran her hand over a length of fabric. "How perfectly soft," she exclaimed. The merchant smiled. "You can buy all the pot," she said, pointing to the sign above her. "What do those numbers mean?" Lady Di asked. "Oh, they're Fracton numbers, my lady," the woman answered. "They are used to measure equal pieces of something, such as this beautiful cloth." Okay, so we've got 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4. Okay, so they're calling them Fracton numbers. Well, we might call them fractions. "Why is one number below the other?" asked Lady Di. "The bottom number is called the denominator," the seller explained. "It shows how many pots are in a whole." She drew lines on the material with a soap sliver, dividing the fabric into equal sections. Denominator, bottom number, how many parts in the whole? 4 in all? Asked Lady Di. "Yes, m'lady," answered the woman. "That's what the bottom numbers mean," she said, pointing again to the sign. So 4, 4, 4. "And if I just want one part of the 4? Asked Lady Di. "The numerator, or top number, tells me how many parts of the cloth you want. In this case, it will be 1, said the woman. Lady Di printed the Fracton number 1/4 on the first section of the cloth. Just that first one. "Indeed, that's 1/4, replied the merchant. "And 2 parts of the 4 would be 2/4. 3 parts of the 4 are 3/4, and the entire length is 4/4, or 1 whole. Lady Di smiled. "I'm partial to red fabric. Have you any?" The merchant nodded and bent down. "Odd. My red material seems to be missing. I'm so sorry, my lady." She excused herself and hurried away to check with neighboring cloth sellers. At this point, Circumference and the Earl approached, each hungry enough to eat half a horse. "Soft curds here," bellowed a portly cheesemonger. "Wheels of cheese, pots of hoe." "I'll take 1/2 of that Wensleydale wheel," said the Earl. All right, so take a look at the wheels. We've got 1/3 and 2/6. What do I know about those fractions? 1/2, 2/4, 4/8. What do I know about those fractions? 2/3, 4/6. 2/2, 3/3, 4/4. "I'd like 2/4 of the Cheshire wheel," said Lady Di. She thought of her lesson on numerators. 2 pieces meant she could save 1 for later. I like that. So she's going to get 2/4, so she can save 1 of the 4 pieces. Well, 1 of the 2 pieces she gets for later. "I'm so hungry, I'll have this much of the Stilton," said Circumference, pointing to the 4/8 on the sign. He thought the bigger numbers meant more cheese. But when the portions were cut, they were the same amount. All right, so she wanted 2/4, he wanted 4/8, and what are we learning in fractions? Well, these are equivalent fractions, right? And we can't just trust the numbers to tell us, okay? Just because the denominator is bigger, that actually means more and smaller pieces. They're equivalent, explained the cheesemonger. They're starting to cut into smaller pieces, so there are more of them. Here, I'll cut the cheddar wheel and you'll see. Wait a tick. Where is it? Missing cheese? Lady Di remembered the missing red cloth. Was it just a coincidence? Are you noticing anything in the picture? Tucked away from the hubbub, 6 men were divvying up a round of tangy cheddar and looking over a pile of other stolen goods from the fair. Red cloth, cheese. Well done, lads, bad old Barnaby said to his brigand band. We've pinched some right proper stuff, we have. Spread out beside them were meats, breads, ale, yarn, fabric, purses, coins, and 4 fluffy sheep. That cloth was the easiest picking I ever did pilfer, chortled one of Barnaby's men. By now, almost everyone at the fair was missing something. People surrounded the Earl, all talking at once. The Earl's head sheep shearer pushed forward. My lord, he exclaimed, 1/3 of your finest sheep are missing. We had a dozen to clip, but 4 are gone. Thieves, growled the Earl. They desire easy gain. Let's think like a thief so we can catch the culprit. All right, so if 4 of the sheep were gone, we saw the 4 sheep right here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And that was 1/3 of the total sheep. And I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There must have been 12 sheep all together. If 4 of them are gone, that would be 4/12, which is an equivalent fraction to 1/3. A plan was quickly hatched. It's a long shot, but it might work. Our puppeteer will set the trap, the Earl said, and Fracton Numbers will do 9/10 of the work. At high noon, the performance began. It featured Fracton's 2 favorite puppets, the diminutive half pint and the sizable pottle. Okay. Oh, Pottle, a huge golden coin. Let's fly up there and grab it. Such a half-baked idea is no surprise coming from a half-wit like you. So this is half pint, so like half of a glass, okay? Half pint. Okay. The audience roared with laughter. Perhaps a kind member of our audience could get the coin for us. On the whole, not a half-bad idea, unless he or she is partly tempted to keep it. You got that right, Barnaby snickered, poking one of his mates in the ribs. The brigand band had returned to enjoy the performance. I've got a half-mad idea. Let's give the coin to the person who finds the largest Fracton number. Slips like this one are half hidden all about the fair. Bring your findings here, Pi. 2:30. Our 1/6 sense tells us we'll have a winner. Okay. A 6th sense is kind of like a term for if something past the 5 senses, like you're able to do something very, very special. The audience sprang into action. A gold sovereign was enough money to buy a small farm, so that's quite a bit of money, I guess, that coin was worth. The thief will want that coin, the Earl said to Circumference and Lady Di. We had no stealing before the fair began, so we think the thief is an outsider to Fracton. And you wager that an outsider would think a number like 1/16 is bigger than something like 1/3 because the denominator is larger? Said Lady Di. I made the mistake myself, admitted Circumference. Now I realize that the larger the denominator, the smaller each part is. The higher the numerator, the more parts there are. So if we take a look here at these two, he's saying mine's bigger, 8/9, and this one's saying mine's bigger, 9/11. Okay. That's actually kind of a tricky one to compare because there's not enough similarities in there, okay? People were having fun searching. Fracton numbers were discovered in unusual places. A small girl noticed a 7/9 between 2 slices of bread. This could be the winning number, she said excitedly. Barnaby and his band kept their eyes peeled for Fracton numbers. They observed a woman unwrapping a 1/2 from around a wool wax jar, but they dismissed it. Too small, Barnaby told his men. A young boy and his father spotted a 1/32 slip. Oh, such a tiny Fracton number, moaned the boy. Leave it, son, his father said. No one would be stupid enough to want that. They left it on the lunch table where Barnaby took it. Ho, ho, lads, he chuckled. We're in luck now. We are big numbers. This must be the winning ticket. The tower bells rang at 2:30. Would everyone with a slip step forward? The Earl asked the crowd. And please line up by number size. I'm here in the middle, said the woman with 1/2. Mine's a bit larger than 1/2, said a boy with 5/8. This one is larger still, I think, said the little girl with 7/9. The slip holders jostled about, but finally everyone was in order, with Barnaby proudly standing on one end with 1/32 or 1/32, and sweet little Madeline Elizabeth Holpart on the Madeline Elizabeth Holpart, Holpart, on the other with 1/1. So one fraction, one numerator over one denominator is 1 whole. Okay, so these are all in order: 5/8, 3/4, 7/9, 8/10 to 1 whole. And then going down from 1/2, 1/2, 1/4, 2/12, 1/10, 1/32. The gentleman with 1/32, called the puppet master. As the holder of the smallest fraction number, you may award the golden coin to the winner who holds the 1 whole slip. No, screeched Barnaby. My number is biggest. The coin's mine. He ran towards the gold sovereign. The Earl blocked him. Defeated, Barnaby and his brigand band turned and fled. So they weren't smart enough. They thought 30 seconds was the biggest number because the denominator was bigger, not realizing that that actually meant teeny, teeny, teensy, weensy, little pieces, okay? They were too fast, the Earl said, returning to the puppet theater after a fruitless chase. But we found the stolen goods. Those 6 ruffians were a whole heap of trouble. 6. There were 6 of them. 6 out of 12, said Circumference. But they fell to pieces in the end, exclaimed the Earl happily. Ha ha ha. The village of Fracton and its Earl continued to be famous for sheep, the fair, and the unique way they wrote their numbers. Those numbers became known as fractons in Angleland. People used them when they wanted to represent parts of things. Today, we call them fractions. Dun, 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 dun. All right. Hopefully you enjoyed this story, especially with my amazingly wonderful British accents throughout the story. But hopefully it was kind of a fun way just to show you about comparing fractions and equivalent fractions, but mostly about comparing fractions. The people from this town did their numbers differently and understood fractions and their meaning. The newcomers had to be explained about it. And of course, a newcomer to fractions would think that 1/32 is bigger, when in fact, 1/1 was the largest of all of them. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.